overly dramatic music. Oh, mercy. How y'all are, people? Evening America. It's evening. I'm sitting here in the truck. Recently on a few comments, people asked me about all the different trucks I've driven over the years. And I thought I'd go through, and I don't have pictures of all of them, of course. I've got pictures of a few of them. It's the ones I've owned, of course. And I've got a couple pictures of company trucks that I've driven. But for the most part, most of these, at first here at least, are pictures I got off the internet of similar type trucks that I drove. So, let's get on with it here. I started driving back in 1987 on April Fool's Day, April 1st. And I hired on with a small flatbed company up in northeast Kansas. And the very first is a flatbed company. And the very first truck I drove was an 86 Kenworth W900 B model. It'd be the short hood instead of the extended hood. It was the shorter hood. And it was a green color, same as this one right here. It didn't have the light green stripes on it. It was just I guess a forest green, or that British racing green. It was that color. And it was a B model Kenworth, 1986 version. And I hauled a flatbed with it, and I worked for them for about a year and a half. Well, about 6 months after I started with them, they gave me a new truck, T600 aerodynamic truck. And basically, the big difference is the hood. You know, the cab and the sleeper was all pretty much the same and everything. It wasn't this color. This is a blue one. It was more of a kind of a rosy, kind of a rose color, or it's kind of. Kenworth has a color called dark ash rose. Okay, dark ash, ASH. And it was that color there. I couldn't find one of that color, but it was this style of Kenworth. It had a 444 Cummins in it, and a 15-speed. The green one had a 400 Cummins with a 18-speed, or I mean a 15-speed. And this one here had a 444 Cummins with a 15-speed. And I worked for them for about a year and a half, and then after I left there, I moved back to Texas and went to work for a company down in Austin, Texas, driving a Marmon. And it was a blue Marmon, pretty similar to this one here. This isn't it, of course. This is one I got off the internet. But it was a very similar to this truck here. It was a Marmon. I don't remember what kind of motor. I believe it was a Cat, but I don't remember what kind of motor that one had. And I think it had probably a 10-speed in it. Okay, 10-speed Spicer, if I remember right. I worked for them for about 4 months and realized I wasn't making any money. It wasn't a very good job. I made a mistake by leaving Kansas and moving to Texas and working for this company. So I started looking around for a better job. And of course, at the time I was married, and I was trying to make my marriage work and trying to, get home pretty regular and make her happy and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up going to work for a company out of Seguin, Texas. It's down by San Antonio. And they had flatbeds also, so I'd done flatbeds with the first company, and this third company were flatbeds. That Marmon, that was a dry van trailer. So anyway, I go to work for this people down there with these flatbeds, and they put me in a Freightliner. Now this is an aluminum hood Freightliner. They're fairly rare. Most Freightliner, most of them have fiberglass hoods. But for a while there, they made aluminum hood ones, and it was one of the last aluminum hood made. And it was an okay truck, I guess. It rode fairly rough. I mean, all these trucks back in the day, they rode fairly rough. And I worked for them for, I don't know, 8 months, something like that. And I got a better job offer with a flatbed company out of Houston. So I went over there. And yeah, I know, you're going to hear a lot of this. I job jumped quite a bit back then, trying to make my marriage work, trying to get home regularly. And, so many times these companies, they wouldn't care. They just put you to work, and you're out there working, and say, hey, I'd like to be home, 2 weeks from now, I'd like to be home. And okay, yeah, we'll try to get you home, and you don't get home. And you know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks go by, and then you finally get home on a Tuesday or something, and they go, okay, well, you got a day off. Wait a minute, it's Tuesday and Wednesday. What are you talking about? Well, you know, so it was hard trying to find a company that matches up with you, that works well with you and everything. So I worked for that flatbed company out of Houston for, I don't know, 6 or 8 months, I guess, something like that. And then I went to work for a company out of actually they were out of Michigan, but they had a terminal there in Dallas. And they ran from Michigan down to the border, down to Laredo, back and forth hauling auto parts. And I ran team. This is the first time I ever ran team. And the guy I ran team with, I got along great with him. He was, you know, a good guy and all that. But it was another one of those, just trying to get a company that would get you home. And it just didn't line up very well. You know, I lived down in Temple, Texas at the time, and trying to get, I thought, well, this company going from Michigan down to Laredo, Texas, I'd be going through Temple all the time, going down I-35. Well, yeah, I did go through Temple all the time, but you're with a team and you got to go. They want these auto parts delivered and picked up, and you just go, oh, well, you're going right through there, but we can't let you take the day off, you know. So it didn't work very good either, so I quit that company, and I ended up going to work for a company up in Rockwall, Texas, just outside of Dallas. And this is Texas Express, and I found a home with them. I worked really, really well with them. This is the actual truck that I drove. This one right here. When I first hired on, they gave me a blue Kenworth Anteater like that second truck I drove. But this is the second truck they gave me. They had switched over to Freightliners, and this is the first brand new truck I ever drove. I mean, absolutely brand spanking new. I jumped in it and pulled the plastic off the seats, and that was this truck here. And I was so proud of this truck. And it's an old Freightliner FLD, but when it's your first new truck, it's, oh boy, you know. So anyway, with that, I worked for them for about 4.5, 5 years, something like that. And there was an issue with a dispatcher, a real good dispatcher that I got along really, really well with. Well, he got fired for a stupid reason. It had to do with paperwork that he didn't do right. And he left, got fired, and he called me up about, I don't know, a couple, 3 months later, and he says, hey, do you remember Paul, I can't remember his last, Schaefer, Paul Schaefer? And I'm like, yeah, he's the guy with the Western Star, right? And he goes, yeah, well, he's got about 4 of them. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. I didn't know that. And he says, well, he's left Texas Express, and he's going to come over, and he's going to buy about 6 more trucks. He's going to have a total of about 10 trucks, and he's going to start his own company up. Oh, really? He goes, how would you like to come over here and drive a brand new Western Star? And these are our customers, what we're going to be doing, and blah, blah, blah. And I knew Doyle. I really liked him and everything, trusted him. So let's go over there. So I went over and worked for them for about a year, and everything was going pretty good. And it was a Western Star, brand spanking new. It was a kind of a burgundy color, like this truck here. It was a burgundy Western Star, but this is a different model. This is a newer model. The blue one is the one like the blue one. It was just colored burgundy. So I worked there for, I don't know, a year, I guess, something like that. And all of a sudden, they lost a couple customers, got underbid or something like that, and freight got really, really slow all of a sudden. And I said, man, I got to do better than this. I can't, I'm not making enough money here. I got to go somewhere else. So I went back to flatbed, and I went to work for TMC out of Des Moines, Iowa. And I drove a truck almost identical to this one right here. This is not my truck. I got this off the internet too, but it was another old Kenworth B model, a short hood B model. And it wasn't old. It was only a year and a half old. It was a fairly new truck, but I went to work for them and worked, I don't know, a year and a half, I guess, something like that. And I was driving around down in Tennessee one day, and this guy passes me, or I passed him, I'm sorry, pulling up a hill, and I passed him, and this guy was laughing and just, having a good old time. I saw him in his window as I passed him. I'm like, what? So I hollered at him on the radio. So what's so funny? And he goes, oh, I'm just in a good mood, blah, blah, blah. We got to talking. Well, he started telling me all about his company that he worked for. And it was a company out of Tennessee. And what they did is they hauled plastic resin from Tennessee over to North Carolina back and forth. And it just sounded like such a good deal. Boy, you're home every night kind of thing. And oh, wow. And at the time, I was, you know, I'd gotten divorced and I was single, completely single. I've been single for several years now. And I thought, you know, maybe let's try it. So I decided to go over and work for them. And like I said, from Tennessee, from Nashville area over to Asheville to Nashville. Nashville to Asheville, back and forth. And it was an overnight run. I'd leave at about 6 p.m. and I'd leave and run over to North Carolina and deliver about midnight and then come back home and be home about 6 in the morning. And then I'd sleep all day, and I had to get an apartment. Instead of sleeping and living in the truck, I had to go get an apartment. It's the first apartment I'd ever had completely by myself, because previous to that, I'd been married and had a wife and all that. And before that, I was in the military. So this is the first apartment I'd ever had. And the only reason I got the apartment is because I couldn't sleep in the truck, because they used it during the day to move the truck around during the day to load it for the next night. So anyway, I lived in Tennessee there for a little while, and I lived there. I worked there for about a year and a half, something like that. This would have been the early 90s, 94, 95, right along in there, I think. And my father called me one day and says, "Hey, we just bought a nightclub up here in Kansas, a little bar, and we sure could use some help running the bar." Oh, okay. So I thought, well, I'd be the good son and I'd go home and back to Kansas and help them run this bar. So I went back there and I managed that nightclub bar for about another year and a half, and that got me into 96, I guess. And I knew I needed to get back out on the road before I'd lost my seniority, because I'd worked all these years at that time. What was that, about 8 or 10 years, something like that, 8 or 9 years. And I had seniority with trucking. I could hire on with any company I wanted to. And if you stay out of the business for about 2 years, then you lose that seniority and everything. You got to start from the beginning, like you have no experience at all. So anyway, it's crazy. Well, I've got 10 years experience. I took 2 years off, and now I got to start over as a rookie again. Well, the trucking's changed a lot in 2 years. Well, no, it hasn't, but that's just their way of, so they don't have to pay you good. They can pay you, rookie scale again. Anyway, I wanted to get back into trucking, so I went to work for a company up there in northeast Kansas in a blue Peterbilt, almost identical to this one here. Very, very similar to this one. And I hauled a reefer trailer, and we ran out to Northwest, up to Oregon and Washington State up there. And we'd pull meat up there and deliver box beef, and deliver that up there, and then we'd bring apples and stuff back toward the Kansas City area. So I did that for I don't know, another year, I guess. Year and a half. A lot of year and a halves in here, ain't there? Anyway, I was driving along one day, and this pickup passed me, and this guy had the trucking logo on the back window, and I keyed the mic up for some silly reason. I don't know why, but I keyed the mic up, and I was going to give him a little shit about hey, what kind of a trucking company uses a pickup, And he goes, "Oh, no, this is my personal pickup. I've got 3 trucks." Oh, okay. He says, "Yeah, we run from Dallas to L.A. back and forth." "Oh, really?" And he goes, "Yeah, we run back and forth to Dallas and everything." And I thought, okay, well, that's pretty cool. And I gave him my phone number. Of course, I didn't have a cell phone back then, but I gave him my folks. I gave him my folks' phone number. And, forgot all about him. Well, one day, I called home, was talking to my mom, and she says, "Hey, this guy named Kirk called, and he said something about a trucking job." I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So I called the guy, who it was. I couldn't remember. And he says, "Remember I talked to you in the pickup up in Kansas?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah." I says, "Well, I just had to fire a guy, and I was kind of curious, was you interested in working?" And I'm like, "Well, doing what?" He says, "Well, I put you in an almost brand new Kenworth. It's only about 8 or 9 months old. Brand new Kenworth going out to L.A., from Dallas to L.A. And I'm thinking, boy, I'd love to move back down to Texas. So I decided, yeah, I took him up on it. So I moved back down to Texas and went to work for him, driving this truck right here. And it was the best, it's one of those fate, I guess. It's fate how it's kind of funny how it works. But I run into him, and he kind of changed my life. That was a changing point in my life. I had just got an old girlfriend of mine had broken up with me, and I was all brokenhearted about that same time, and was just wanting to move back to Texas. So I moved back to Texas, and I go to work for him, and there's a lot goes into it. I was blowing my money left and right. Every time I turned around, I would spend all my money. I lived paycheck to paycheck as a driver, and I made pretty decent money. I wasn't a millionaire or nothing like that, but I made good money compared to flipping burgers and stuff, And I didn't have any money. I was broke all the time. I couldn't figure out why. Well, it was because I blew it on silly stuff, and just wasted it. And once when that girlfriend broke up with me, I didn't go to the bars hardly at all anymore, and realized I was spending a lot of money in bars, going to the nightclubs and buying $4 or $5, beers, stuff like that. And it was just, you realize you waste so much money in the bars and everything. So I kind of gave up on that and quit going to bars near so much. And also I run into Kirk, and he was doing very well. He's a year younger than me, and he was doing very, very well financially. He had a lot of stuff, a lot of toys, a lot of property, nice house, that kind of stuff, And I realized he's doing something right, and I'm doing something wrong. I'm broke, and he's a year younger than me, and he's better off than I am. And he didn't inherit any of his money. I'm thinking, so I started paying attention to him, and everything started falling in place. I mean, money started staying in the bank. I just, my whole life kind of changed around, right around, it was like 98. It was November of 98 is when I went to work for him. And anyway, I drove this truck for about 6 months. And then he come to me one day, and he says, when you hired on, you said something about you'd like to buy a truck someday. And I says, well, yeah, I always wanted to buy a truck, but, just never had the opportunity and the money to do it. He said, well, I've got an offer for you. And he says, I got an older, it's a 92 Peterbilt. And the guy just told me yesterday that he's going to quit. I'm like, oh, you mean Gordon? He says, yeah, Gordon's going to quit. He's going to move on, and I've got this truck, and I was just curious if you were interested in buying, I'd sell it to you. Oh, okay. So I went ahead and bought it, and I fixed it all up. It was already a pretty nice truck, but I took the bumper off, put a bigger bumper on it, put straight stacks on it, and then I got the idea one day. The truck is made out of aluminum. Most of the panels are made out of aluminum. The roof of the cab and the roof of the sleeper are fiberglass, but the hood, the door, the cab, the sleeper, just about all of it's aluminum. And I got the fenders were all nicked up, had a lot of rock chips and stuff right behind the headlight. And I got to thinking one day, why don't I take these fenders off and polish them out? So I took the fenders off, and I sanded them all down, and then I took them over to a polish shop over there in Dallas, and this is the guy polishing the fender up for me. Then I put it back on the truck, bolted it back on. So I was one of the first people that ever polished their fenders out. I'd never seen it done before, and I thought, let's try it. So I did it, and I loved it. And wouldn't you know, about 2 years later, Peterbilt comes out with the 379X, which they had polished front fenders from the factory. So, did they get it from my truck? I don't know, but I'd never seen it done before. And then right after that, Peterbilt changed and offered a truck with polished fenders. So, anyway, we kind of joked and laughed around about that. That maybe that was my idea, and it caught. Anyway, so I had that truck, and things went. I got it paid off. We had a neat little payment schedule and everything, and I don't want to get too detailed in it, but basically he financed it, and once it was paid off, he just wrote the title over to me. It was kind of a handshake kind of deal, There was no contract, no paperwork. I trusted him, he trusted me. Well, I trusted him, but he had a fiance girlfriend and whatever, and she ended up kind of ruining it for everybody. She embezzled a whole bunch of money from him. She got to where she wasn't paying me and a couple of the other drivers, and we got way behind on payroll. And one day I says, the heck with this, and I got upset and I quit. So I took that truck and I took it back up to Kansas, because I didn't have a house in Texas. I didn't have any property in Texas or anything like that. So I just drove it back up to Kansas, parked it at Mom and Dad's house, and I figured, well, what am I going to do now? And I didn't know anything about owning a truck. I owned it, but I didn't know anything about owning a truck and how to lease it on and do all this kind of stuff. I was a real rookie when it came to owner-operator stuff. I didn't know anything. You know, I knew how to drive a truck, but I didn't know anything about owning a truck. So the truck just sat there, and I thought, well, I better get back to work doing something. So instead of leasing the truck on somewhere, because it was too old, it was a 92, and this would have been in 2001. So, you know, it was almost 10 years old, and most companies didn't want to lease on it. Every company I called, no, that truck's too old, we don't want to lease it on. Okay. And there's different theories on why that is. A lot of, you know, the companies will say they don't want an older truck because of maintenance and breakdown, you know, possibilities. But a lot of it is they want you to have a payment. Therefore, if you have a payment, you have to work. And they can push you. And you know, if you get to where, well, I'm only going to drive for a month and then take a month off and then drive for a month and then take a month off, they don't like that because you're not there all the time, and you're not there for their utilization. So they want you to have a payment, so you have to, it forces you to work. And that's a theory. I don't know if that's exactly true, but that's a theory some drivers have. Companies want you to be in debt, therefore it forces you to work all the time. So anyway, I left the truck parked there, and I said, well, I better get to work. And I went to work for a company called US Express, and became a trainer. You know, I've been driving for about 9-10 years, and I thought, well, I can teach people how to drive. So I went over and did that for about a year, and that would have been during 9/11, during 2001, during the 9/11 attacks. And I was over there driving with them, and I went over there and worked for them for about, I don't know, a year and a half, I guess. Here we go with this year and a half thing again. So I went and worked for them for about a year and a half, and during that time I trained, I think, about 10 or 12 students, something like that. And out of the 10, let's say 10 students, out of 10 students, 2 of them were good. Yeah, I mean, I was amazed at the terrible quality of drivers that they got. They had this, the only female that I trained, it was a female student, and she was with me for about 3 days, and I realized she's not going to make it. She can't drive, and she didn't want to drive at night and all this, and I couldn't figure out why. And finally she says, well, I can't see at night. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, I'm night blind. Oh, well, if you're night blind, you shouldn't be a truck driver. So I told the company, I says, I don't think she's going to make it. You know, I mean, she can't drive at night. She can't see at night. And during the day, she's not really a good driver either. And I understand she's brand new, but still, you can kind of tell right off the bat if they're going to make it or not. And I never slept, you know, you get to where you run team and everything. I never slept behind her. I never let her drive unless I was in the passenger seat, you know, with her. Because I didn't trust her. I didn't think she was any good. They didn't agree with me, so they took her out of my truck and put her in with a female trainer, and she finished her training. I heard about 3 months later that she had laid a truck over and just about killed herself. So companies, they don't listen to you, you know. So I'd had enough of that company, and I got to talking with Kirk, and this girl, this fiance, she had left. And they broke up and all this. And he called me up and said, hey, she's gone, and man, I sure would like to have you back. I'm like, oh, well, okay, I suppose, you know. And, well, I'd already sold the truck. During that time when I was at US Express, I sold my Peterbilt. Well, I don't have a truck anymore. He says, good, I want you to drive the old Kenworth again. I'm like, oh, you mean the same one? He goes, yep. You know, so I got back in that truck and drove it for another year or so, to about 2 years, doing that California run again. And old Kirk, he just worked me to death. I mean, just work every day, you know, nonstop. This went on, it was close to 2 years. And I said, I can't handle this. This is too much for me. So in 2005, I left and went to work for Creek Carrier. I said, I don't want to work this hard, Kirk. It's just, you're wearing me to death. And just 7 days a week, nonstop, never had a day off, just go. So anyway, I left there on good terms and everything. I left. We were still friends and all that. He understood. And I went over and went to work for Creek Carriers. and I did their lease purchase program, and I bought a Peterbilt, and this is the one I bought, and this is the way I bought it. When it was day one, it was just a plain red Peterbilt, and I bought it and put it to work. And over the year, or over the next several months or whatever, I dressed it up a little bit, and I put some chrome on it, put some straight pipes on it, put a big square bumper on it, things like this. And you dress things up. I put a nicer visor on it, what they call a drop visor. And anyway, I dressed it up a little bit, made it look good. Well, somewhere along there, I went to a truck show or something like that, and some of the big thing trucks were doing, drivers were doing about that time was putting in wood floors, hardwood floors. Take the carpet out and put hardwood floors in. So I take the carpet out and I put wood floors in, and I thought that was pretty good. And then I thought, well, hey, I don't like this chair over there. Every time I'd hit the brake, my map would, the road atlas, my map would slide off onto the floor, So I got, that was about the time I bought my first computer, and I thought, hey, I'll just build a little desk over here. So I built a desk and put my laptop on there, and that way, when I needed to get on the computer for anything, the laptop was sitting right there conveniently, and it had, underneath I had a cooler, like a refrigerator. So at any time I could reach over and grab a Coke or something, and so I built that all up, and I thought, this is pretty good. Let's just keep going with it. So I kept building more wood, and I tore the sleeper out a little bit. I was going to build a little cabinet and some drawers and everything, and this is what I got done. And I took the sleeper, in the sleeper, I took the closet out. I took the closet out and built this little thing, and made a little bit more room for a bigger TV. So I put this bigger TV in there, and all this woodworking, and of course, the Xbox or PlayStation, I can't remember what it was now. I guess it was a PlayStation, I don't remember. Anyway, so I got into the video games there for a while and had that, and then I thought, well, if I've done this much woodworking, I might as well, I hated this gray interior, so let's take this gray interior out and let's put some wood in there. So I kind of disassembled the whole sleeper and rebuilt everything, got a different TV, the whole 9 yards. I just kind of went hog wild and turned the whole truck into sleeper, into wood, wood and brown vinyl, a light brown vinyl. So anyway, I got that all done, and man, I thought, boy, I really like that. I really did a good job on this. Well, I still needed to do some stuff up in the cab, and I thought, well, let's build some cubby holes up there on the overhead. So I built this wooden I don't know, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? The overhead underneath the stereo and everything. Anyway, I built that, give me a little bit more storage, and kind of enclose the CB box, a box for the CB and everything like that. And I was really proud of that truck. Boy, I really, really like that truck. Now, this would have been, it was an 05, it was an 06 Peterbilt. I bought it in 05, brand new. And I had it up until 07, almost 08, I guess it was. 08. I had up until 08, and right around 08, the fuel prices went through the roof. If you guys remember back about mid 2008, the fuel prices went up to $4.50 a gallon. And I saw the writing on the wall and thought, well, I better sell it. So here's the last day before I sold the truck. I went into Kenworth and I ordered a brand new T660 Kenworth with a studio sleeper on it. Okay, which it's a little bit bigger sleeper than your standard 72-inch sleeper. It's a 86-inch sleeper, and a little bit more room, some more closet space and stuff like that. Anyway, I ordered this, and when it came in, about a month and a half later, it finally came in, and I went, and this is the day when I traded. I brought the red Peterbilt in, and here's the brand new blue Kenworth, and I traded, and I thought, well, I get better fuel mileage. Well, actually, it was a good move. I'd put a lot of work into that Peterbilt, but by buying that Kenworth, it pretty much paid for itself just in fuel savings. I was getting about 5 miles a gallon out of the Peterbilt, and I was getting close to 7 out of the Kenworth. It was a good financial decision. I hated to do it because I really liked that Peterbilt. I did put so much work into it, and it was kind of, I wouldn't call it a show truck, but it was very nice. I was real happy with it, and but I just, I thought, man, I've got to get with the program and buy a aerodynamic modern truck, to get better fuel mileage and all that. So I did. I bought this, and like I said, the Peterbilt got about 5 miles a gallon, and the Kenworth got about 7 miles a gallon. And by doing the calculations, it basically, I saved enough fuel, I saved enough money in fuel mileage to actually pay for the Kenworth. It paid the monthly payment on it. So I had it, and I bought it on a 4-year note. I stayed with Crete there for another, I don't know, I guess about 6 more months. And while I did that, I did a little bit of modification, but nothing drastic like I did before. I didn't, really tear it apart like I did the Peterbilt. But I wanted to make this cabinet, on the passenger side, there's a cabinet right here, and there's just no good place to put a TV in there. And I like a big, large TV. So I started disassembling this shelf here and put in this TV in the console in the 2 cabinets there. And I really like that. I mean, I did an okay job. It wasn't the best work I ever did, but it was okay. It worked. And then instead of bringing the wooden cabinet from the Peterbilt over, I just went down to, I think it was Staples. Went down and I bought this little drawer cabinet, and that's the one I still have. I'm still using in the Big Pete that I'm in today. I've had that cabinet's been in 3 trucks now, so I've gotten my money out of it. What it is, it's a side drawer. It's a side cabinet or whatever for you put like a printer. You have your main desk, and then off to the side that would be where a printer would sit, and then the file cabinet underneath. Well, I took the files, there's no files in there. I took it and I used that as a storage, stuff that I have in the truck. That's where I stick it, and that way it's at at arm's reach while I'm driving down the road. It's just close in storage. So anyway, I bought that and drove that truck for about 5 years, 5.5 years, I think. So, and one day, I bought that truck with Crete, or while I was at Crete, leased it on with them for about another 6 months, and that's when Kirk calls me one day and says, "Hey, I'm going to retire from trucking." I'm like, "You what?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to retire from trucking, and I'm going to go up and farming full time up in Kansas." Now, if you haven't figured it out yet, Kirk is my farmer friend up in Kansas. That every summer I go up and help him with wheat harvest. And he says, "I'm going to quit and go up to Kansas and go farming full time." I'm like, "Oh." I said, what are you going to do with the company? And he goes, "Well, do you want it?" Do I want it? "Yeah." Do you want it? And I'm like, I can't afford it. Because I figured, and he goes, "No, I mean, you have your own truck. You'll have to buy a trailer and get your own authority. And I'll just give you the phone, blessings. I'll just tell the customers, hey, I'm quitting on this day and Stan's going to take over on that day." And because they all know you already, you've already done the route many times. And I said, "Well, that sounds okay. Let's do it." One of the best decisions I ever made. And so I quit with Crete. I bought Kirk's old blue trailer, the one I used to haul years ago. I bought this old blue trailer from him, and I ran that for about a year. And everything was working good. I couldn't, I was real satisfied with how everything was working. So I thought, this trailer's pretty old, and the floor was kind of wore out. It was about a 20-year-old trailer, and I need to upgrade. So I went and bought a brand new Great Dane spread axle reefer with a Thermal King unit on it, and took it down to paint shop. And we painted it up and painted where the silver stain, the aluminum rails on the top and the bottom. We painted them, got them all cleaned up, and then I drove it like that for, I don't know, 6 months or 8 months, something like that. And then one day I thought, I'd like to put some graphics on it. So I went down and had graphics put on the driver's side only. I didn't put them on the passenger side. I just put them on the driver's side to see if I liked them. I put them on. I thought, yeah, they're pretty good. Okay, they're all right. And I'd always planned on putting them on the passenger side. I never got around to it. And one day, I'm out in California. I'm in the warehouse, and this happens. Yeah. Crunch. What the heck was that? I'm standing inside at the desk waiting for my paperwork, and this guy walks in and he says, senors, anybody had a blue truck? I'm like, yeah, I've got a blue truck. I fall on your truck. I fall on your truck. And the guy didn't have very good English skills, you know, so I'm thinking, fall on your truck. I mean, he just, okay, he's not using the right word. He probably meant hit my truck. I'm thinking, oh, great. I figured he went, when he's pulling out, he ripped the hood off the truck or something, or he backed in. When he's backing in, he backed into me or something. Well, we walked outside, and this is what I found. So, he had unhooked. Remember I tell you, when I'm backed up to or hook up to a trailer, you always put it in first gear and pull and give it a little tug to make sure you're connected. He didn't do that, and he pulled out. And as he pulled out and turned, the trailer slid off of his fifth wheel and crashed to the ground. And because the landing gear landed just wrong, it folded over, and the whole trailer fell off and crushed my truck. So did a good job too. Pretty much totaled it. At the time, I think that truck was probably worth about $50,000. You know, I'd used it was about a 5-year-old truck, and it was worth about $50,000 with the number of miles on it and everything. I think it was around 750 or about 750, 800,000 miles. I don't remember exact. But anyway, I'm like, well, shoot. So, as you can see here, it fell over and crushed the wheel and bent the rim, blew the tire out and bent the rim, and barely missed the trailer. And the top corner, you know, it's a container, and the corners are really, really strong, heavy duty, because that's what they stack them on. Well, that came down and hit my frame, and I figured it bent the frame, but it didn't. It tore up the sleeper real bad, and of all, you know, as bad as it was, it could have been so much worse, because I still was able to drive the truck. I was able to drive it while I put an order in for a new truck, a 2015 Kenworth. So yeah, it hit the frame, but it didn't bend the frame. But that stopped it from going on down and ripping the fuel tank off. And if he would have pulled just a little farther forward instead of crushing the sleeper, he would have crushed the cab. So I mean, there was just all these different, you know, but it went just far enough to where it missed the trailer. So my trailer was completely undamaged. So what I did is I limped all the way home. The tire that was blown out, I just took it off the rim, threw it in the back of the trailer, and I limped the truck all the way back home to the body shop and let the body shop work on it. Well, we decided what to do instead of repairing this sleeper and putting a new sleeper on and all that. Being it was a 5-year-old truck, Kirk was in the market for a farm truck. And he says, did it bend the frame? I'm like, no, didn't bend the frame or anything like that. We got real lucky on that. And he goes, well, what's damaged on it? And I'd send him a ton of pictures and all that. And he says, I'll tell you what, I'll buy it as it is. Okay, so I got the insurance money, and then I sold it to Kirk, and I put that money, all that money together, and put it as a down payment on this new 2015 Kenworth. And then what Kirk did, it was at that body shop. He just said, okay, he called the body shop and says, hey, take that sleeper off and turn it into a day cab. Well, he turned it into a day cab, and he came down, picked it up, and took it to Kansas, and it's been on the farm ever since. And that's one of his main trucks that he runs during the summer. When there's nothing else, there's no other farming, or I'm sorry, during the winter. When there's nothing else to do, he puts one of his workers in that truck, and he drives grain around the county. So that truck never leaves much of, you know, more than about 50 or 100 miles from Kirk's house up there in Kansas. So with that, and I had ordered this new Kenworth, this new W900, and I thought, you know, this is going to be my last truck. I'm going to buy this truck. I'm going to run it until it's wore out, and I'm going to retire in this. And I said I said that on the 09 T660 also. But anyway, I pretty much meant it with this. So I thought, well, I'm going to buy exactly what I want. So I ordered a Kenworth with the what they call the Seminole paint job, the blue with that white inlay. That white inlay is called a Seminole design, Seminole paint job. And it's an old paint job from way back in the 70s, and it's a good looking rig, I think. So I've ordered it, spec'd it out exactly the way I wanted it and everything. And this was my ride until I decided to sell the company. And when I sold the company, I sold the company back in 2016 and walked away from the whole. I was burnt out on it. I'd run it for the better part of 20 years. I ran it a lot with, many years with Kirk as a company driver, as an owner-operator, back with it as a company driver again, then as a owner-operator, company owner, and did that for about 8 years. And I was just, work. I mean, just 7 days a week. It just wears you out. Just work. You never have time to rest, And so anyway, I saw the writing on the walls too with like the logbooks, the electronic logbooks. There's no way I would be able to log all the route, the way I ran the route. There's no way I could put it on a electronic log. Not that I ran it overly illegal. It was just there were certain days, like Friday was a very, very long, busy day, and I wouldn't be able to do it with an electronic log. So I sold the truck, the trailer, the company, the whole 9 yards, the customer base, the whole everything, to a friend of mine, Mark. He runs out to California every week, and he just wanted to add on to his fleet. He has, I think, 4 trucks now, something like that. So I walked away from it and was going to retire, and I had money in the bank, and I thought, I'm going to take early retirement. I went home, sat around there for about 2 months, got bored. And, it's summertime. I need to run up, work for Kirk, do weed harvest. So I went up to work weed harvest with Kirk, and I got to talking with him, and I said, well, I've heard of this company in Oklahoma that hauls brand new trailers. And I think that would be an easy, fun job just for something to do, just to keep busy and, still truck where I wouldn't be sitting around home bored, And he thought it was a good idea, and of course he had just wrecked his truck. He had laid his truck, his livestock trailer over, and he was in the market to go find a new truck. So after weed harvest, we got in my pickup and we drove all around the country looking at new truck. I went around looking at these big sleeper trucks because that's what I was looking for, and he was out looking for a Peterbilt. He ends up buying a 07 Peterbilt with a factory 70-inch sleeper. Same motor, same transmission, almost identical to mine. I bought an 07 with a twin turbo cat, 18-speed, almost identical to his. I bought mine first, and he bought his about a month later. Both same year, same motor, same transmission. Everything's the same. His is white. This one's burgundy. And I've got the big sleeper on mine, and I only paid $10,000 more than he paid. He paid $75,000 for his, and I paid $85,000 for mine. And after that, got to where I just enjoy this job. It's easy. I'm never pressured time-wise. It just, any pressure is stuff I put on myself. I need to hurry up and get this done so I can, be home for the weekend, or I won't be stuck in somewhere in Minnesota in the wintertime all weekend long. If I get up there and get this trailer delivered on Friday, I can get back out of there before the snowstorm hits or something like that. Those are the kind of pressures I put on myself. But other than that, customers, get it here when you get it here. It's just super, super nice, easy job. So I really, really enjoy this. And because of this job, I've been able to do the YouTube thing. When I was running California, under my own authority and everything, I worked so much. I worked 7 days a week. I didn't have time to do my own book work. I'd work all day, and then in the evening I'd sit around doing fuel reports and things like this. Just constantly busy. Now I have a little bit extra time, and I thought, well, let's do this YouTube thing. That seems like it'd be fun. So I've been doing the YouTube thing, and y'all have been, enjoying that, I hope. So that's my story, sort of. That's, from trucking. Once I started driving in '87 up until today, that's the trucks I drove, and the companies, didn't give you the exact names of every company, but you get the idea. It's a flatbed company here, or a tanker company here. But anyway, that's what I did. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Probably a little too long-winded here, but oh well. I don't know where else to go with this one, so I guess I'll just cut it off and say y'all have fun and just keep watching the videos, and you're caught up to date. Put it that way. You're caught up to date. You know where I've been, and now you know where I'm going. Ciao.